Hey, how's it going, guys? Chris here. Today we're going to be watching this video from SBS Insight. At this rate, my kids won't get an inheritance. Talking about the cost of living, how people are forced to, go homeless, and no one's there to really support these people that are struggling. So, as always, the full video is linked below, and let's get into it, eh?
The cost of keeping a roof above our heads. Can we fix the Australian dream?
Today I've got
Answer: of course we can fix it, but will it happen? Probably not.
$17 in the bank. The message I'd like to give the RBA is they're targeting the wrong person, so I'm reasonably angry about this repeated interest rate rise.
I think it's 100% fair, but I'm not denying the fact that it's very, very hard.
Rents have been continuing to rise at rates above 10%.
How dire has the situation become?
It's at breaking point.
I thought I was looking at homelessness.
Did you have to make sacrifices to get on that property ladder?
I did. Even if we were going to be sleeping on a mattress on the floor, we were in our own home for Christmas.
House prices have increased almost 40% since March 2020, twice as much as capital city prices, regional house prices. Yeah, so where I've just moved sort of regional Queensland. Probably before COVID, you could probably pick up a house for 200, 300,000. Now they're 600. So that's a 100% increase. And I think Queensland's probably one of the biggest hit states in the country. Probably that in Western Australia. Obviously, Sydney's just fucking ridiculous. So Sydney doesn't count. We don't count Sydney because Sydney's always going to be too expensive for everyone, or New South Wales in general. And yeah, so it's a crap situation. And how much your wages are? You'd be lucky to have maybe 10%, 14, 15% increases in wages. I don't know the data, and I probably should, but I would say it's about that. It would have been no more than, roughly 3% a year. 5 years, that's 15%.
Before this kicked off, I had a suburban house. It was 3 small bedroom house and a single garage, and it was $300 a week. I had everything I needed as a single man with 2 children, and I could afford it. Now that same house would be $700 a week. Now let's step that back a little just to a 2-bedroom place. It's probably going to be $600 a week. Now, I work hard, I work full time, but that's 60% of my take home.
I'll stop interrupting so much soon. But sadly, 40 hours a week is not working hard. That's just the reality now. It's not working hard. That's the average. It's what everyone. That's the minimum. That's the bare minimum. So yeah, sadly, the bare minimum is now not enough to afford a house, to rent a house, not even to buy a house, just to rent.
Wages. My name's Bruce Cox. I live just at the back of a little town called Browley on the south coast near Bateman's Bay. I was living in a tent for 6 months due to the accommodation crisis that we're suffering down here at the moment. At that time when I was living in the campground, there were multiple groups of people, families, single people, single parents, all living either in their cars or in tents or in caravans. Only had a cold shower, only had public toilet block, cooking on a campfire every night or before I went to work. I feel totally let down by the system. Australia is one of the most affluent countries in the world, where we all work hard, the unemployment is low. The prospects in Australia, you would think, would be one of the most favourable of any country. But this situation exists, and I don't understand why it exists.
Sky, like Bruce, you also live on the New South Wales south coast, and for 3 years you found yourself without a permanent rental. What happened?
I had a separation, kind of had nowhere to go. I was homeless twice in that time. I had my 6-month-old and I had my 2 older children also in school. So my older children actually lived with my mum for a while I had the baby with me, and we found us a house. Only took about 2 months the first time. We were there for about 18 months and then we had to move again, but there was absolutely nothing. The prices were crazy. Like, there was barely anything under, say, $600 a week, which as a single mum, one income is just completely impossible.
When you were staying with your mum, what was that like?
Testing for everyone, I think. We all have different ways of doing things and whatever. We could get on each other's nerves. We had good times. We had tougher times where we sort of didn't want to be in the same place, but kind of had no choice.
How many of you were in the house?
There was 9.
So how did the whole...
What? That's insane. 9 people living in one house. You know, obviously, maybe, okay, if you're going to buy rent a 2-bedroom house or a 3-bedroom house and there's only 2 of you living in there, and you can't afford it, well, that's crappy. But if you have to live with 9 people in whatever size house, unless it's a 5 to 6 bedroom house, probably a 6-bedroom house for 9 people. Like, it better have two living rooms. I'm sure it probably didn't. That's crazy.
the situation affect you emotionally, Sky?
Nearing towards the end of it, I was suicidal. I was in a very bad place.
Matthew, you're a mayor on the New South Wales South Coast. How dire has the situation become in your community?
It's at breaking point. Unfortunately, I've heard lots of stories like Sky's. We're a seasonal town, obviously. So we can't get staff for local cafes, tourism businesses. We can't get staff for the hospitals. We can't get teachers for the local schools. We can't get staff at council. We're currently 75 positions short at our local council. We can't employ. There's nowhere for those staff to live when they do want to take the positions. It's something that's hitting every industry in that region, and unfortunately, we're thousands of houses down on the supply that we need.
Isn't that insane? That it literally makes no sense. There's not enough houses. There's not enough people to work. Like, how does that make sense? How does any of this make sense? Like, and then there's how many people coming into the country? Like, there needs to be, if there's going to be this many people coming into the country, they need to be going to these regional towns where they need people. Like, there needs to be some sort of period where you have to go there for 2 or 3 years until you're able to move into a capital city, because that's ridiculous.
Kayleen, you're the head of Katungal. This is an Aboriginal health service in the South Coast region. How many patients does your organisation look after?
So we have 8,000 patients covering from Bateman's Bay down to the Victorian border.
And how many sort of staff, doctors and nurses do you need to meet that demand?
Well, across our service we need around 150. We're probably running at 120 at the moment.
And why that shortfall?
Obviously, the housing availability. We have a lot of families living together from overcrowded housing, but the training and development's not available in our footprint, so yeah, it makes it quite difficult to recruit.
So put it in context, like if you say lose a doctor, how many patients therefore are not being treated, say, on a weekly basis?
So on average, it's around 120 appointments a week. We just recently lost one of our main GPs, who was also a supervisor for one of our registrars. So that's 240 appointments we've lost just by losing those 2, just because they weren't able to find a rental.
So what effect has the lack of housing had on your ability to treat locals?
The continuity care is lost. When you're looking at a health service model, you need an integrated team care arrangement. So that's not just the GP, it's the Aboriginal health practitioner, it's the nurse, it's the dietitian. And if you're missing a key element of that, you're not able to holistically provide quality care.
Matthew, what's causing the housing crisis across the region?
There is no supply, and we've gotten to this stage because compounding issues. Bushfires that hit our region, we lost 500 houses straight away. 3 months later, COVID hit, stopping the supply chain. No one getting out and about. No buildings, no new houses happening. We've really are in a very sticky situation, and we've got a new hospital coming. There's no worker accommodation for that, so very soon we're going to have another 100 people coming in to build a hospital, taking up more of that supply.
And what about prices in the region for houses and for rent?
It's unaffordable, and personally, you know, my rent went up 40%,
40%.
Through COVID. I mean, you are talking 2-bedroom houses, $600 a week, and it's just something that the local community can't afford.
Hal, you're a professor of housing research and policy. Is the situation on the New South Wales south coast an isolated one?
I'd say it's not by any means isolated. Maybe not every part of, let's say, regional New South Wales has got as much stress as what we're hearing about just now, but it certainly isn't an isolated case, and it flows through into other statistics like homelessness numbers, for example, which over the last few years have been growing much faster in regional Australia.
Yeah, I've talked about this every time. But like the amount of homeless people I see out here, like pitching tents and stuff in the parks and taking over like those facilities where, you know, you'd have like people would come and have a barbecue. They've just got rubbish everywhere, and they've got their like awnings and it's not an awning, but like tarp up and their tent, and like, you know, fair enough for them. Like at the moment, it's currently pissing down, so yeah, they should be under somewhat more cover than just a tent. They should be under a roof of some sort. So like it's fair enough that they're there, but like that just speaks to the problem that there is at the moment, where so many people are struggling and are either getting forced out of their houses because, one, there's not enough supply, prices keep going up, demand's high, doesn't work for, you know, someone just trying to get by.
In general than in the major cities.
Kira, you moved to Australia from Ireland at the beginning of the year. At one rental inspection in Sydney, you encountered a queue to view that apartment. Let's have a look. How many people do you estimate were in that line?
So on this particular day, I viewed 4 properties, and each one had between, I'd say, 100 and 150 people in.
It's like a full-time job just to get a rental apartment. It's insane. Like, and this is post-COVID. This is when it's supposed to be, you know, cooling down, but it hasn't cooled down. Like, it's just as hot as ever.
So it was crazy. You felt like there was no point in going in, but it's kind of all you could do.
With that many people in a line, I suspect you're getting in and out of the properties quite quickly.
I mean, they call them inspections, but we were not inspecting them. We were just going in, showing our face, putting our name down and hoping we'd get a call. And for all those viewings, we didn't get a call for.
When you saw just how many people you were competing with, did you have to adjust your expectations?
Yeah, 100%. Originally, we wanted our budget to be about 700 to 750 a week. But when we ended up getting offered something that was 950, we actually took it because we were just fed up at that stage. We couldn't.
I can 100% attest to that. Like I've moved up here and we didn't have much time to move up. Like we had to get a place. We didn't really, we just took whatever we could. We applied for obviously several places. I would say probably like 30 or 40 that were within our budget, plus also ones that were outside our budget. The current place we got was outside our budget. It was, you know, like obviously we could still afford it, but it was stretching a bit more than what we would have wanted to pay. But we just had to take what we could get. Like we took the first offer we could get. Like I'm no complaints with the house other than the rent's going up again in January, so we're gonna have to move once that rent increase hits, because it's getting ridiculous. Like there's no point in paying that much for just the two of us. So yeah, I can attest to that. Like you just pay for what you just if you get offered a place, you got to take it pretty much.
Couldn't keep staying on the couch any longer.
Wow.
So we were in a really lucky position that we got something, and we were delighted. But it's a lot of money.
Ben, you're an economic and social.
And then like obviously you're paying all that money, and now you can't save as much, and you can't buy your own house. So now you're stuck in the rental game. This is how it works.
Researcher, is Australia in a rental crisis?
I think it's a complicated story. So if you're like one of these people that you've looked at here, where you're looking at people who are moving into a new rental situation, establishing, say, a new bond, I think for that situation, there seems to be a shortage of new stock on the market, and certainly rents are being pushed up. Landlords are trying their best to increase rents as much as they can. So a very stressful situation for those involved. For those who perhaps are already in an existing arrangement with their rental situation, I don't think it's a crisis, and most people in Australia will be in that situation. So when you look at the official statistics, you look at, say, the census, or say the ABS Consumer Price Index, which has got a series for rents, you don't find that rents are growing nearly as strongly as what the media often says. So I think over the last 12 months, rents are increasing by about 4%. So it's not to say that there aren't terrible things happening in Eurobodella. Many
Mate, my rent went up. Oh fuck, what was it? It was like 15 or 20%. So I don't know where 4%'s coming from, and I'm already in a place. So
regional parts of Australia.
So we shouldn't be worried about, say, queues like that, like the ones we just saw?
No, we certainly should be concerned about queues like that. So there's those people who are in a lot of difficulty trying to get into new rental arrangements, or they've come from another country. Immigrants, it's a very difficult situation. But for many other people, in a sense, it's business as usual. In fact, the last 10 years, we've actually had quite low increases in rents. We've had rents that have been increasing less than the Consumer Price Index, which has been relatively low for about 10
mate, this guy's off his chops, eh? I don't know. I don't know where this data's coming from, but like, yeah, maybe there's some people that aren't getting any rent increases, which is good for them. But I'd say the majority of people are getting rent increases that are crazy. And I don't know. Like, at the end of the day, a rent increase, who does it affect most? The low and medium to low income earners, even medium income earners. It affects them a lot because they can't actually, continue to save at a reasonable rate to hopefully eventually move into that higher or upper middle class. So it just affects that lower end of the spectrum. Like the high earners don't really feel that those effects of rent increases as much as low and medium income.
10 years and growing less than income. So for some people, actually rent stress is coming down. So it's a bit of a fragmented market.
We're seeing large numbers of international students returning to Australia, and immigration is also growing. How will this impact the housing market?
So that's likely to be a negative, of course. It's likely to put more pressure on demand. So not all international students will be entering into the private rental market. Some of them will be living on campus at universities. So there probably is some availability in rental accommodation on campus. So some of that will just be filling up that. But yes, it will certainly be adding to demand at probably the worst possible time right now.
Hal, what do you think?
I think we would expect quite a sharp impact of large numbers of students entering the country, needing to find somewhere to live. And it has quite a localised effect, though. To a lot of us, seen rents rising for a couple of years, and this is true in most parts of the country, actually. That's really a bit of a surprise, because that's occurred at a time where migration stopped. We didn't have a growing population through migration. We only had quite a low rate of natural increase. And yet, advertised rents were rising at levels that we hadn't seen since 2008. Rents have been continuing to rise at rates above 10% in the last set of figures. And yeah, the return of larger numbers of international students, I would say, is highly likely to put some more petrol on that fire.
Australia's seen a record number of consecutive interest rate rises since May 2022, with more set to come. What impact is this having?
The people who are really in the firing line here are recent first home buyers. We've got an unusually large number of people in the population who are in that situation. And they're the people who are most likely to be up against it or really put under stress as a result of an interest rate rise and the interest that they're paying on almost the entire mortgage they took out, even 3 years ago. But they won't have paid very much off at all by now. So a typical mortgage in New South Wales at the moment is around about $750,000. And if you're suddenly finding that your fixed rate deal of 2% finishes and you're now probably going to be paying 5% plus, that's a really big increase in your outgoings.
it's literally double, if not more. It's more than double. Yeah, so obviously if you're, just buying a house, you got a $700,000 mortgage, you're paying well into the 7, 8. No, it might even be more than that. It might be like $900,000 a week. I don't know. I'm not going to look it up now. But yeah, it's a lot of money. and yeah, you can pay that for 30 years. Imagine that. So obviously these rate cuts that are coming in are very beneficial if they do actually come through. But yeah, at the moment people are
It's
struggling.
probably going to take you nearly $2,000 more a month as a result of that. So that will be pretty hard for a lot of people in that situation
Extra
to absorb.
$500 a week.
Steve, you own your home in Melbourne. How much of your repayments increased since rates started going up?
So I refinanced as a result of a separation in 2020, and at the time I split my $750,000 loan into variable and fixed, and I was paying $1,500 a month.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
And with well, actually, my bank hasn't passed on the most recent raise, but I'm now paying $4,200 a month.
Wow.
Which is $50,000 a year in repayments. Now, I'm on a good salary. I'm on full-time, ongoing work, but I understand that mortgage stress is defined as 30% of your income. I'm at over 50%.
Can you afford that on a single income?
I've been rejected.
You can afford it, but you can't bloody. You got no room to do anything.
For refinance, which would suggest that they think I cannot afford it. The reality is that when rates started going up, so it was very affordable on my income, okay? $1,500 was very doable. I wasn't, dining out on caviar, but certainly it was doable. So I started to try and do something about the income side of things. So I was selling things that have been lying around. I've got a 6 and an 8-year-old. They've grown out of certain toys. I had a bicycle that I wasn't using so much. So things like that. And then you've run out of things to sell. So next I looked at the expenditure side of things. And so I changed energy providers. For example, I changed both my gas and my electricity providers, and that made a real difference. The Victorian government offered a $250 rebate just for going to the comparison website. So lots of my friends, me included, went and did that. And then you run out of expenditure things that you can reduce. And so then you're on to what people are calling discretionary items. But for many people, and the people who have paid off their mortgages or have small mortgages, discretionary items are termed as lavish holidays, eating out, and then we get down to the coffees. I'm way beyond that.
You're not even doing that?
No way.
Yep.
No. So discretionary for me now is how much food I'm buying, where I'm buying it, whether I'm buying it on special. I kid you not, it is what time of day am I turning on the washing machine so that it costs as little as possible. Never mind holidays, no chance. So it's not much of an existence. I'm surviving, but today I've got $17 in the bank.
Yeah, wow.
The sad reality is, what else is he meant to do? If he sells that house, he has to go and rent. And then if he goes and rents, he's then stuck in that rental cycle. And if he sells it and tries to buy another house, good luck. Unless his house, he's got a lot of equity, and that would suggest then his house is maybe like $1 million, 1.1 million to 1.5 million. But I'm not sure. Like if it was worth selling, he should have sold it by now and just bought a cheaper house. But don't know.
I'm in my mid-50s. Friends have loaned me money just because they know I've been in my house for 22 years. So it's home, it's where my kids were born, I've raised them. And that stability is important for me.
Okay, I don't know. This is great. Like he must have spent a lot of money. Because if he's been in that house for 22 years, he should only have 8 years left on his mortgage. So at the same token, maybe if he was I wouldn't want to say more financially responsible, but more. How do you have a $700,000 mortgage? Oh, I guess because he had to buy out his partner. That's right. That's where he started off. So yeah, that's why he's getting stuffed over here.
My friends know how important that is, but I'm hanging on by the skin of my teeth.
And a day doesn't go by at the moment where there's not half a dozen stories in the press about housing stress. How does that affect you, reading those headlines every day?
That's an interesting question, because on the one hand, it emboldens me that lots of us are in this together. But the message I'd like to give the RBA is, if their measures are designed to change people's behaviour, I cannot change my behaviour anymore. I can have no more impact on bringing down inflation. So they're targeting the wrong person, and yet I feel like I'm paying, right? So I'm reasonably angry about this repeated interest rate rise, interest rate rise, interest rate rise. Inflation's just going up and up and up. Where's the fiscal policy? How is the government getting involved in the supply side of inflation rather than the demand side? Because if everyone's behaviour was like mine is, we would be in a recession already.
It's very stressful.
Yeah, I'm just not sleeping. I'm not suicidal. I think that must be an awful place to be in. And I'm sure lots of people, the stress they're getting towards that end of the spectrum. But please, something's got to change.
How does your situation make you feel about the so-called great Australian dream of owning your own home?
Mine's a nightmare at the moment. It's not the dream, but I have a home. So on the one hand, how lucky am I, right? I've got a nice home. My kids feel safe in it. There's a lot of love in that home. But they know we're not going on, interstate holidays. We're not flying anywhere. I'm buying their school uniform from the school second-hand uniform store. They get that. They get that Dad's doing it a bit tough at the moment. I daren't even think what it's going to look like for them post-university. I'm not going to be leaving them an inheritance at this rate. So
yeah, it's going to be pretty hard to leave an inheritance when literally all your money is going to surviving and paying down a mortgage. It's crazy. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe his house would have to be worth like a good million and a half. So you got to wonder, potentially it's worth selling and moving to a less expensive area. If he's in Sydney, move to sadly to say, move to Brisbane or whatever, But yeah, I guess a lot of people are stuck in their ways, and it's good for him that he loves where he lives. So yeah, it's hard.
I've no idea how people in their 20s and 30s are aspiring to this dream.
Tara, you're a single mum with 2 dependent kids. You own your home in Brisbane. Apart from your mortgage, what are your other expenses?
So I've got your normal like gas, electricity, school fees. They go to a private school. Uniforms, car insurance, house insurance, just general day-to-day, like council rates quarterly, things like that.
What impact have rate hikes had on that family budget?
It was tough. I ended up refinancing at the end of last year, and it was literally down to the nail to get approved.
And how tight were the finances at that point?
Once I came off interest only, it was going to leave us with about $200 a fortnight for food.
How are you coping emotionally?
I wasn't sleeping. I felt sick about it. Embarrassed.
Embarrassed why?
When I looked at the figures, like scared to ask to refinance. And like I buried my head in the sand about it. I finished off the house, but when I put it all down on paper and realised how bad it was, yeah.
We're gonna cut here, and I'm gonna pick this up on another video. So if you want to watch that, make sure to subscribe and come back and check that one out. I'll see you guys over there.